Those are good spots.
They are really good.
Talk about.
Time for thinking real estate. Off last week. Back this week.
Yeah, and you raised what?
So you
$8,000 last week or something?
Yeah, a little over 8,000. Well, thank you.
Was that just because we were gone? You raised that kind of money?
I didn't want to say that.
But we were all thinking it.
No, we weren't. No, we miss you.
Okay. Well, I have a shout out. Yesterday while I was at the gym, I met one of my constituents, and I started telling Bill the story last night, and I thought, no, I'll wait until today. So about a month ago, I saw this gentleman, and my husband has got the body of a 35-year-old.
I'm only 32, by the way.
He's 65. Bill is in amazing shape. He just is. He puts most people to shame, and I hate to work out with him.
Yeah.
And there was a gentleman at the Y who had a similar body to my husband's, and I commented to
You're
him.
checking out a lot of bodies.
Well,
Laura.
you know, when they hardly wear anything, it's hard to miss them.
Oh, and they're
At the Y.
they're unclothed also.
Well, they're clothed.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
they're exercising.
All right.
You know.
Okay.
And so
I'm
I
putting
told
you to
him
the
he had
test
a nice.
here.
I told him he had a nice body.
Oh.
I said, I'm not hitting on you, and he said, well, too bad, and I said, well, I don't think my husband was like that. How would you feel about that? Oh, you probably wouldn't care. No, you would care.
Do I get to respond?
Go ahead,
I don't know.
You probably don't like to.
Yeah, it's probably best that I say no comment.
So anyhow,
Good lawyer in there.
Thank you.
I finally met the guy, you know, formally yesterday.
No. Okay.
And his name, so shout out to John Bostic. And I find out he's a constituent of mine. And his grandson, 17 years old, is a real good looking kid going off to Central Michigan to study pre-med.
Well, good for him.
So, shout out. And his name, I think it's Morris, but Maurice, or, I'm sorry, I can't remember his, I didn't write it down. Sorry. But, shout out. What do you got going?
I'm just waiting for you. I have no shout-outs this month. I'm just here at your whim and your command.
I like that. I got an email. Okay, so I got an email yesterday.
Just one?
I wish, but from a constituent who does not want us to pass medical marijuana. Marijuana, I think they were referring to just the decriminalization of marijuana.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure.
But we do have the medical marijuana on the ordinance for August. But in any event, her
You
comment.
mean you have the medical marijuana ordinance on the agenda in August, is what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Mm-hmm. But that's
For the city-
not.
for the
That
city
doesn't have
council
anything to
meeting.
do with the decriminalization of marijuana in general.
Right.
Her comment was she was upset because she was renting an apartment and she ended up moving because people were smoking marijuana in adjacent apartments and she didn't want the secondhand smoke. So how'd you like to address that?
Well, first of all, you're talking to a lawyer that went to the University of Michigan undergrad in the 1960s and the law school graduated in 1972, and you'd walk across the diag at the University of Michigan in those days, and you not only got secondhand smoke, you got firsthand smoke.
Can you spell hookah?
And do you spell marijuana with a J or an H?
With a J. You know, there's a reason behind the state's use of the H, and I really don't recall what it is, but at any rate, it's marijuana.
Is that for brownies?
The H or the J?
H.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't
But in
know.
the statute, it's spelled with an H. I don't know what that is. At any rate, how you asked me how I feel about it?
Well, first of all, I'm going to respond to her and let her know that the landlord still, I would think, I assume, if medical marijuana passed as legalization, there's a difference between decriminalization and legalizing medical marijuana, period, correct?
I think of decriminalization and legalization as sort of the same thing, but maybe you're talking about decriminalization in the sense that
Apples and
municipalities
Yeah, I think so too.
that municipalities are decriminalizing possession of small amounts of marijuana by making it a fine as opposed to a criminal offense. It's treated as a civil offense, like a speeding ticket, etc. That's what you're talking about in terms of decriminalization. I believe legalization is where it's actually legal to possess limited amounts for personal use. I think that's what you're talking about.
And I would think that another difference would be through decriminalization, a municipality can't tax it, but through legalization, a municipality could tax it.
That makes sense. Again, you got to look to the state statute, because a municipality is simply, or is an entity simply created by the state, and the enabling statutes for municipalities come from the state. So whatever authority to tax that would exist on the part of a municipality has to come from the state, and I don't know what laws.
What would, you would tax somebody selling it?
Yeah, just like you would alcohol, I would think. I mean, I don't know, this is new ground.
Yeah, that's the theory, is that in fact it would be taxed, and if you're growing, et cetera, there'd be a permit fee, just and treated as a commodity like any other regulated commodity, whether it was tobacco, alcohol, et cetera. But you're not there yet. Your question had to do with what a landlord could do.
Correct.
Isn't that what you're asking me?
Yes, right. And I think it's different what a landlord can do between whether it's decriminalized or whether it's legalized. So,
I don't think it makes any difference from a landlord's perspective, because
if they don't want smoking,
they
don't want smoking.
Right, tobacco is a legal product, but as a landlord, I can prohibit smoking in my apartments that I rent to tenants, or in my commercial space. And I've said this before, I don't know if I've said it on the radio, but the Michigan Attorney General, whose name is similar to mine, pretty close, Bill Schuette, has opined, has given an opinion, that a landlord or an owner of property has the ability to prohibit marijuana smoking on the landlord's property by a tenant. And I don't know of any court challenge that's been mounted to that opinion yet. There probably will be. The counter to that is that if I am an individual who has a medical marijuana card, I have that card because of a medical condition, and therefore it's a disability protected under the Persons with Disabilities Act and the Americans with Disabilities Act, and therefore a landlord could not prohibit me from smoking it in my apartment. I don't know which way that's going to come down. My view is that you probably could stop it, because there are other ways to get medical marijuana than smoking.
Right, you could do oils or
brownies.
Right. They actually say the oil is more effective.
Yeah,
I guess
it
it probably depends on the illness.
But I mean, that just gets down to the private property rights of the landlord, what the landlord can and cannot do. Remember, the landlord cannot discriminate on the basis of any of the protected classes of individuals: race, sex, national origin, marital status, familial status, age. But the landlord certainly can discriminate against tobacco smokers and can discriminate against certain uses of the property, etc. And things on the property, water beds, for example. Lots of landlords.
I talked to Mayor Griffin yesterday, and he's very dubious whether there's enough valid signatures. I guess they found quite a few that on the petition ballot that were not.
Well, you're telling me something new.
We're not city voters. I don't know if there's enough. I don't know exactly how many they turned in, but if it did get to the ballot, it would be extremely interesting.
What's really interesting is I saw a news program the other day, and they were talking about those municipalities in which petitions have been filed for referendums in those municipalities, and they were talking about Grand Rapids and I think Saginaw, Detroit, and how these are all in the late 2000s and now 2013, and then they get to Ann Arbor and they say 1972.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an enclave in the state of Michigan that is so unusual. And then when Ann Arbor adopted the ordinance, this is 6 or 7 years ago, about creating a green space around it, so that its development would be checked, etc. The people in Ann Arbor used to think that there'd be a fence 12 feet high, electrified, put around it to keep all of the riffraff out of the city of Ann Arbor. I found out the instant I went outside that fence that it actually was put there by the other people to keep all the riffraff in the city of Ann Arbor. There, yeah, right.
Are you taking calls?
Sure.
Good morning.
But I've got a mortgage question.
Yeah, sure.
I bought a house about a year ago. It's a 30-year fixed at 3.75%. It was sold after the first month mortgage payment because of my house insurance, which is taken out, through the escrow, that my taxes. And I called my house insurance, and I got that reduced. So my payment should go up, but they're still saying they can raise it. Is that something I could further look at, or can they actually do that?
For your escrow account you're talking about.
Well, for my insurance and taxes go through the escrow.
Right, yeah.
And now my house insurance, I got a statement from 2 months ago saying it's going up.
Yeah.
But I talked to him and I got it reduced. Then he had raised my dwelling replacement cost and a few other things, and I got that reduced.
Right.
And when I called the financial institution on that, they in the meantime had sent me a letter stating that because of that it's going up. Well,
Right.
I got it reduced to less than what I was paying in the first place.
Yeah,
But they're still wanting to raise my payment.
your insurance company should be able to contact your mortgage company and tell them what the new rate is going to be, and they should be able to recalculate that. They give you
Who did that?
they give you
Said
2
he
or
did
3
that.
months, and they still didn't do it.
No, they say it's still gonna go up approximately $15.
Well,
So,
if they
it's great that they can't raise something like that.
well, if they over collect, you will get a refund. They can't keep the money. It's not their money to keep.
Correct.
So it's kind of like a little savings account that you're not getting interest on, and which you wouldn't get interest in a savings account anyways, but
Well, how do you get it back?
he'll get a check next year,
Oh,
about the same
Well,
time.
So it could go up for the year then.
Yeah, for the year. If they refuse to do anything, but I've got a couple of mortgage companies that I don't care for, but they still do adjust. I mean, like they say, I pay my insurance outside of escrow, and
Yeah.
they always say they don't have proof of it, and they're gonna charge me, and da-da-da, and my insurance company steps in, we use Kraft, and they, step in and help out a lot on that. So, it's a battle, I get it, 'cause I deal with it on one of the mortgage companies I work with.
So I probably will end up having to wait till next year to see what happens.
That's correct. But they can't keep it because they're gonna pay an actual bill out of your escrow, and they cannot keep the overage.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your
well,
help.
thanks for the call. Who knew?
You do now.
Yeah,
So,
good stuff.
yeah. So back to thank you for the call, and back to the marijuana issue. The landlord, if people are smoking and it's not medical marijuana and they don't have a card, the landlord should call the police.
What?
If someone's doing drugs, marijuana, some illegal
I gotta watch
substance-
that on video. Just
Right.
your face there, Phil.
What? Okay, if they're doing illegal drugs, yeah.
Well, right now marijuana is illegal.
Yeah, I understand that, okay.
But how do you know if it's
Right.
marijuana or?
Or maybe they're just
Something
into
else.
incense, they're Buddhists, and
Yeah.
they're using
I mean,
incense or something like that.
You
Okay.
can't.
Yeah,
How can you couldn't prove it.
if you suspect there's illegal drug activity,
That's a whole different
again,
ballgame, isn't
yeah,
it?
you know, you're using
Well, but right now
heroin,
marijuana
meth.
is illegal.
I understand that, but you
Right,
know,
yeah.
if the police had to arrest everybody that's using marijuana,
Well, that's the point of decriminalization.
yeah, I mean, let's get realistic here. As a landlord, if there's a complaint that somebody's smoking marijuana, as a landlord, what I'm gonna do is, rather than call the cops, is I'm gonna notify the tenant that if they continue to use it, violates the terms of the lease, and they're gonna be booted out of there. That's how I would handle it as a landlord. If I know that there's meth or heroin, or suspect that
There's
there's
something
meth,
there.
heroin, coke, anything like that that's going down at the property, that's when you get the cops involved. But if you call the cops saying, hey, I think one of my tenants may be smoking marijuana, most of the police people I know,
I'll be
would
right
say,
over.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, that's sort of ludicrous these days to think that police are gonna go looking for small.
Well, what do you
small-
think, Laura, if that hits the ballot?
My
Remember,
gut,
don't disclose your vote.
my gut feeling is that it would pass.
Is it? Okay.
That's what my call would be.
Mhm.
But I'm also predicting my niece is gonna have a boy. We'll have to wait and see. You know, I don't know.
Okay.
How how would you vote on it? Can you, I can't disclose my vote, but
Yeah.
I
Oh,
put it on Mark,
I don't wanna know what you would vote.
Yeah, and I think, and obviously, you have to make it clear that your sense of how it would be doesn't come from other members of the council, but rather based upon your view of society
well,
in
if it
general.
goes that, wait, well, that's going to, they're
talking about a
looking at that
referendum.
being put on the ballot.
Yeah, you're not
This
talking about the
isn't
city
a
council, right,
decision.
you're talking about the
This is-
referendum?
Yeah.
I have no clue whether it would pass in Jackson.
I-
I could tell you what would happen
Be an
is
interesting vote.
if the referendum went back up in Ann Arbor to reduce it from $25 to $5. That would pass in a heartbeat.
Right now.
It used to be $5 in the 1970s. That's
Well,
what it
you
was.
have to, now,
Inflation.
They went.
who votes in Jackson? Who votes?
Well, any registered voter. What do you mean?
I will
Who
tell
actually
you-
shows up at the polls?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Depends
it's
on the
a
issue.
really an older demographic here in Jackson.
I think you're younger, your 20s and 30s are going to the polls.
I'm not saying they're not, I just think it's, Jackson's an older demographic voter.
Well, the demographics are the people who were children of the 60s like myself. They'll show up at the polls to vote affirmatively on the medical marijuana
Maybe.
proposal. Okay?
Well, I have heard that that this is the time for it to be on the ballot because of your generation, because we're not in the same generation.
Well, I am clearly a baby boomer and clearly a child of the 60s. I'm
And a
sorry.
cradle robber.
Well, I'm a baby boomer
I'm
too,
sorry
but
to
I'm
wear
on the
my
opposite
bandana
end.
today, okay?
There is a meeting on August, I think it's August 14th. I think it starts at 6 or 7 out at Grass Lake, and Mike Shirkey is the moderator of it, and it is about marijuana.
Oh, really?
So I think it's about the legalization of marijuana. I got an email on it, not from Mike, but from someone else, and I just haven't had a chance to thoroughly read it, but I also got a phone call, that's why I know about it.
And simply from an economic point of view too, you sit here and again, I think many of the police personnel recognize that trying to bring criminal charges against individuals who use marijuana, who possess small amounts of marijuana, is an exercise in futility. And rather than spend time doing that, they'd rather spend the time
I'd rather have them catching the
enforcing,
thieves,
you know,
Well, yeah.
the gun route, you know, the shooters.
Right, the more serious crimes. And,
Right.
you know, there's a balance here. I understand the moral issues that some people have about marijuana and drugs, et cetera, and I'm not discounting those and I'm not dismissing them, but on the other hand, there's some realities about all of this that we ought to look at as a society. Economically, it makes some sense.
Well, so yesterday I was on Mark's Daily Show.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I'm on there the 5th
You're all over the place.
Wednesday,
Oh, your regular visit?
my regular visit, which
I'm
is
sorry
the
I missed that.
5th Wednesday of the month. So I'm not sure when the next 5th Wednesday is.
Okay.
But, so we talked about this, but we
Sometime
also
in
talked about
2016, I think.
we talked about licensing and permits of, you know, various, well, haulers in particular, but I was going to talk about what realtors have to do in order for us to conduct business. But you just told me we only have 2 minutes.
Yeah.
You have less
We'll
than
have
that
to-
now.
We'll have to do that next week.
We'll have
Do you
to
have
do it
any
next week.
open houses?
I have to put my glasses on.
Okay.
We do have a
We'll wait.
open house, no open houses.
Okay.
Oh, and I do have a price reduction, 4,900 Oak Point, which is a very cool house. It's on 280 feet of waterfront at Channel at Wolf Lake. 4 bedrooms, 4 baths, 3,500 square feet. That is reduced to $364,900. It butts up to state land. It's just a little piece of paradise right there. Beautiful, beautiful condition, and I love the floor plan on that one. We have the Amazing Race coming up,
Yeah.
and we're looking for sponsors anywhere from $25 right on up to $1,000. So you could call us at 780-3800, and that money benefit goes to the Fitness Council, and we need teams of 2, $80 for a team. We're starting at the Riverwalk Amphitheater, which is right there at Consumers. You're going to get a clue, figure out where you're going to go, do an activity once you get there, get the next clue, and go on. There's a $500 award
For the winner?
prize for the
Sweet.
winning There's two $500 prizes.
Mhm.
One for the team that comes in first and one for the team with the most points, because you can earn points. So you don't have to be fast.
Call Jackie.
Call Jackie at 780-3800 on that, or for real estate. We need listings.
See you next week.